All right, can you hear me? Am I unmuted? Everybody good? All right.
Hey, Gary, before you
Yes,
get
sir.
started, I just wanted to do one thing real quick.
Sure.
Can I ask if Joseph Lohman would unmute his microphone? Joseph is a recent graduate from the virtual program. And I want Joseph to tell you where he's coming from.
Huh?
Oh,
Is he unmuted?
yeah.
There we go.
There.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody.
So congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Where are you coming to us from?
Well, I live in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Oh, wow.
I'm
You know what the
retired
shipping
Navy.
cost for a guitar would be?
Quite a bit, I'm sure. More than $20.
Actually, I just sent you an email, Joseph, introducing you to one of our management staff that's going to be working with you on a gift card at a music store by you.
Fantastic. That's lovely. That's
So-
a great solution.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the lessons. I enjoy the live sessions because I also came on and I'm doing these courses as well. I've learned a lot. I've really come along a long way, and I've really enjoyed it. So thanks for what you guys do for the vets. It's really good.
What time is it in Scotland?
It is now just after 5 in the evening.
Oh, all right. Well, congratulations. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Gary, but I wanted to give a shout out to Joseph.
Awesome. Awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks so much. Thanks. So,
All right.
we were one of the lucky ones who got to go see the Queen at St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. So, my wife and I got to go do that. So that was nice. So there's some nice things here too.
Are they still touring without Freddie Mercury?
They do bring it up.
Sorry, that was inappropriate.
You just
No,
had
it's
to
okay.
that, didn't you?
Michael's going to
No,
stop
he's-
my
he's
video
still a
now.
He's still a superstar over here. So.
All right. So, well, today we're going to talk about the pentatonic scales. I don't know how familiar any of you are with it. I know we have brand new graduate and we have some that have been playing for a little while. And pentatonic scale is something you really need to learn. I mean, by the time we get through today, I'm going to show you, we're going to cover 2 boxes. There's 5 boxes on the pentatonic scale. I'm going to cover 2 of them today. That'll be enough to get you started. And then if Mike and Paul like it enough, I'll come back for part 2 later, get the other boxes. But these 2 will get you started. And by the end of today, I will have you be able to play along in any key. Somebody throws out, hey, follow me along in a B flat minor. Sure, I got you. You can do it. I'll show you how to do it. And it's simple. Let me throw up the, I'm used to using Google Meet, so give me a second to find my stuff here on Zoom.
So if you didn't get the PDF, you can get it out of the Cavarts community.
Yeah, I did put a downlink load there for the deal.
All right, it's not screen coming up. I can't tell what I have up there. Is the little thing up there with the major key scales on it?
No, I'm not seeing anything on your screen, Gary. There we go.
How about
Got
that?
you.
Got it there.
Beautiful.
All right. And, Mike's going to make this, I think he's already put it on there, make it available for everyone. But these are the major key scales. This is for whatever key A through G. Those are the notes that make up each of those keys. But you'll see there's 7 of them there. So we're going to get into pentatonic scales today. Hopefully you've heard about pentatonic scales. Pentatonic just means penta is 5, tonic is tone. So there's only 5 of these notes that you're going to be using out of each key. Like the major pentatonic scale is only going to consist of notes 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, which is on this one. And the minor pentatonic scales are going to be 1, a flat 3, 4, 5, and a flat 7. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's a whole lot to memorize. Well, you don't have to with the pentatonic scales. I'm going to show you the basic boxes and how to do this up and down the neck and how to find out what key you're in and go from minor to major chords to play along. So I think this is the reason most people, when they've heard about learning the pentatonic scales, this is what turns most people off. They've got too much to memorize, but that's not what we're going to do today. It should be showing up on your screen now, the minor pentatonic pattern 1. Everybody have it? I'm going to walk you through it. This is the simplest one. And this is one, if you know the pentatonic scale, this is the one everyone, should know. And a lot of musicians, actually, this is the only box they learn and they play it up and down the neck. So we're going to start you off. Each of you have your guitar with you. And you notice there's no fret numbers on there, and I'll explain that later. But we're going to start up here on the 5th fret on the 6th string. So if you just follow along with me, we're going to walk through this box 1, and then we'll get into a little more stuff later. But all right, if you have the 5th fret of the 6th string, all right, so your pointer finger is going to go on hit the first note, and then your pinky is going to come up. You're going to skip 2 of the frets, so you've got like 3 semitones. You're going to come up with your pinky, then hit that one. So you've had an A and a C. So work with that a little bit. That's getting it started. A, C, and to show you how simple this is going to be, you only see there's only 2 notes per string that you're going to have to learn. Yeah, should make it pretty easy. So on that 6th string, we have the 1, and then pinky comes up and hits 3 frets higher. Then you come down to the 5th string, hit it on the 5th fret, and then using your ring finger, hit the 7th fret. So you just come up 2 semitones. Simple so far, right? Everybody with me? We're going to go down to the, somebody unmuted. We're going to come down to the D string. So it's going to be 1, 4, 1, 3, pointer, pinky, pointer, ring. Down on the G string, it's the same thing. Pointer, ring. So do that with me one time. Everybody good? Then when you get down to the B and the E string, the 1st and 2nd string, you're going to go back and play it like you did on that 6th string. It's going to be your pointer finger and your pinky, pointer, pinky. That is all there is to a minor pentatonic scale. And I don't know if you've seen, you've obviously seen people out there playing, things up and down the neck and wondering how they do it. Most of them are just playing scales. And once you learn the scales, there's so many songs that are basically just scales. Like, there's recognize that? That's just a C and an F scale, major scale. There's that's another one. from back in the 60s. But those are scales and things we're going to be able to play with a little bit later. But I want you to practice a little bit on that. Get this box down. You should be able to go up and down. Let you digest that for just a bit. And if you notice on the picture that I have up, you'll see the red, the notes in red. And everybody's muted, so I can't ask my questions here. So I'll just plain tell you, that is your root note. And that is what is going to be important for you to learn. You need to know the notes coming up and down the neck. Coming up on that, especially on the E string, you need to know the E, F, G, A, B, C, E. You need to know those. Once you know those notes, wherever your pointer finger is pointing, when you start playing this box, that's the key you're in. Like we were just playing on starting off on the 5th fret, that's an A. So this is a minor pentatonic pattern, so that's an A minor. That's an A minor pentatonic. And when you're playing along with other people, you want to know where your root notes are, because those are the ones you want to emphasize when you're playing along. So for those of you who don't know, here's another little secret about the beauty of the guitar neck. To find your next octave, it's always 2 strings down, 2 frets up. So if we started here on the A, and we come down 2 strings and up 2 frets, that's your next A. And then of course, that's on the E string, the high E is the same thing as a low E. So when you're playing, and again, I'm not going to teach riffs and solos and things. That's going to be up to your imagination and your creative ability. Once I show you where everything is, that you can get in there and you can start experimenting with your and playing with it. But again, that's the minor pentatonic box. Now let me throw a curve at you. I just played this thing and told you it was a minor pentatonic box, but it is also a major pentatonic box. But it's the 5th pattern of the major pentatonic box. I don't want to confuse you with that now. And I hope I'm not going too fast, making sense. I mean, the medicine's kicking in on me already. But just remember when you're playing, if you're playing this box, wherever your pointer finger is, whatever note you're on, that's the key you're playing. Somebody tells you to play, you want to play a B flat minor. You just come up to the B flat and start there. And you play along with it, whatever. But here's another little secret. Wherever your pinky is, when you're playing that box on the E string, that is your major. So the pinky up here is ending up on a C. So this A minor becomes also a C major pentatonic. And if I don't want to get into theory, but some of you may already know that, A minor is the relative minor for C, and it works out up and down the neck wherever you go. Wherever your pointer finger is going to play the minor. Wherever your pinky finger is, that's the major pentatonic. So with this box right now, you've just learned a major and a minor, major and a minor pattern. Give me a second. All right, so let's work through that again. Let's. If you can play that, go up and down the neck, whatever key you want to play in, you've got it. And use your imagination, and you can throw stuff in. You can bend your strings with it, and add your own flavor to it, and add flair, and do what you want to with it. But that is a simple minor pentatonic pattern box. And so we're going to go on to Excuse me, I'm sweating like a fish here. If we go on up, Pentatonic Pattern 2 just goes right on up the neck from where we stopped. So if we're back here on the A, where our finger ended up there, that's the beginning note of pattern 2. So you'll see pattern 2 is going to just continue up the neck from wherever you were. 4, 1, 4. If you look at it, it's a little more confusing than the other because you're back and forth on the strings, but just commit it to memory. You've already know once you get your first box out of the way, whatever note you ended on, that's the beginning note for pattern 2. And whenever you're in pattern 2, wherever your pointer finger is on the 4th string, that again is the key that you're playing. So, that would be your A. Go up the neck with that. And put them together. I think I'm going downhill here. And this is what it looks like. And again, you'll all have access to this. This is pattern 1 and pattern 2 put together. But the beauty of it here is whenever you're playing in a key, you're playing an A minor, you're playing along some blues, whatever, it doesn't matter what notes you hit. All those notes are part of the key. So you can mix them up. You don't have to just sit there and play the pattern. You can mix them up, go back and forth, add your own style to them. And what I'd suggest is getting onto YouTube or somewhere and get a backing track, get an A minor backing track or whatever key you want to, get a blues backing track, and one, you can practice with it while you're playing along with it, or you can just that's really all there is to the pentatonic scales. There's 3 more boxes to it, but if you can get these 2 boxes down and play, and then find something to play with, you'll see, just really how easy and how easy it is. And Michael, I think I overstepped a little bit, and I may have to have you, Paul, kind of help out here because I'm fading fast. I mean, my temper.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, thank you for soldiering through that, man. I really was concerned about you when I got that email this morning. But awesome presentation. I've allowed everybody to unmute themselves, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Just go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask your questions. Joseph Lohman asks it. Pattern 1 starts on the A and pattern 2 starts on the B flat, or does it start B sharp? Honestly, I just go with where my pinky finger's at to start that, and whatever note that is, that's the note it is, but somebody else has probably got a better answer than that.
Hey, can we take Gary's?
Yeah, Gary, can you
Before
stop
Gary
sharing
leaves,
your screen real quick so I can allow other people to be.
Okay, I found it. Here's the stop share. There we go.
Thank you
Gary,
so much.
Gary, thanks again for soldiering through. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, last night was miserable. I got to tell you, I turned off the AC, turned off the fans, put on a sweatshirt, and I was still shivering and miserable all night. I loaded up on Tylenol. I got my temperature from 103 down to 101. I think I got it from my son. I mean, sharing is caring, I guess.
Right.
So
this goes away as quickly as I got it. I mean,
yeah. So I'm just looking at the questions. Matt and Joseph kind of asked a similar question. So let's be real clear what these patterns are, and emphasis is on the word patterns. So these are movable patterns,
Mhm.
and wherever you start your fingers decides what note you're on, and usually the key you're in. So for example, the pattern that Gary showed us, I'll do that very first pattern. And I'm just going to start it, and we'll talk about why in a second. I'm just going to start it. I'll start on the 5th fret. So the pattern he showed was, and I'm just going to say the names of the frets that I'm fretting with my fingers based on the pattern that he showed. So I'm starting on the 5th fret, the low E string. So 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. So that pattern is first finger, 5th fret, my pinky, 8th fret. So it's 2 notes per string. So 5, 8. Now I'm going to move down to the A string, 5, 7. And this is why guitarists love pattern 1. It's such a simple pattern. You're not using your, you're not using your middle finger at all. Now that's the pattern. I started on the 5th fret, so now I gave the pattern a home, which means if I'm going to use my first finger, without getting into too much detail, that's an A minor. And that scale, that first position scale, would be what we call my A minor pentatonic shape. However, if I moved everything down 3 frets, or excuse me, 2 frets, so I'm on a G, and I do that exact same pattern. So now instead of 5, 7, since I'm starting on the G, it's going to be, what is that? 3, 6, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 6, 3, 6. Now that's my G minor pentatonic shape. So Matt and Joseph, it depends on where we put the pattern. Right now, if the pattern is just kind of, here's where your fingers go, and then the key decides what fret you pick to play that pattern over. Does that make sense? And you guys could all unmute if you want. We could have a little bit of an interaction here unless you're playing along with it, but that's kind of how we decide what key then.
Now, Paul, I had a question. If we start with pattern 1 and we move it down to pattern 2, we're still playing a scale, right?
It depends on where we start. Yeah, I mean, if we're starting on that 5th fret in the A minor, and keep in mind those 5 patterns, I wish I had a visual, and maybe there's a visual of all the pentatonic, the 5 patterns connecting up the fretboard. So for example, where you saw that one pattern, which is the 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, there's a pattern that lives right to the left of this towards my nut, the nut of the guitar, and a pattern that lives above it towards the sound hole. And so if this is pattern, say 1, the next pattern would be pattern 2, and it connects with the last frets I'm using in pattern 1 and presents a new pattern, and then the 3rd pattern. And it's only 5 patterns because when you repeat the 5 patterns on the neck, you've gone through, basically think of the 0 to 12 frets where you're just starting over again. So Michael, the answer is, yeah, if I'm in A minor, so if I picked my fret and that determines what key I'm in, then when I go to a pattern above it, based on the patterns that Gary showed us, or the pattern quote behind it, I don't know if it's right to talk about it as in front or behind, but it's going up the neck or down the neck. All of that is beautiful for not just A minor. What's beautiful about the pentatonic scale is, and why guitarists love to start there, if let's say you have a chord progression that is A minor, G, F. Well, any of the notes in the A minor pentatonic scale work over any of those chords. You don't have to worry about hitting a bad note or being out of tune in any of the chords in that A minor chord progression. So if we were to say, add the major scale, which adds 2 more notes, so instead of penta, we're adding all 7, I do have to worry about those 2 notes I'm adding based on the chord changes, because those 2 notes won't always fit even in the same key. And so that's why it's nice when you think about approaching this. Pentatonics is a 5-note safe scale in the key that you're in. And so you could just play over chord changes if you get these patterns down. Once you start adding other notes to it, you have to be a little bit more careful with knowing what the chord changes are so that you sound in tune when the guitar goes from that A minor to the G. If you're hitting maybe a 3rd or a 7th, whatever the 2 notes that are excluded, it could sound bad depending on the chord progression.
All right, Tom, did you have something to throw in there? I know that you were looking to unmute your microphone. Everybody should be able to unmute their microphone now if they have any questions.
Touching on what Paul just said there, again, just wherever your pointer finger is pointing on that minor pentatonic word, that first note, that's the key you're in. Whether it's an F, whether it's an E up here, whether it's a B, C, whatever, that's the minor key that you're playing. Losing my voice now.
Great. Hey, can you hear me okay? I am actually coming from a different location. Hey, Gary, hope you feel better. Thanks for that walkthrough and the presentation. And hey, Paul, it's great to see you, and Michael as well. Just to kind of add to the idea of pentatonic scale when I'm playing, when I'm using it, I usually try to stay within that box that that Gary and Paul walked us through, and just kind of focusing in on just those notes, hanging out there for just a little bit. And then sometimes, I either progress up to that second box that Gary had shown us. And the tones obviously get higher, and it adds something that sounds different from the first box. But I think that, the takeaway for me for pentatonic scales, at least for the ones that we're looking at right now, is just try to stay within those boxes, using just those notes, just those fingerings. Put on a song, see if you can figure out the key, and then good that you have been studying the notes on the bass on the 6th string, on the low E string, because then you can go right to a G and then start to play that minor pentatonic that Gary had shown us. Or if you want to play a C, you can just go up to that fret and use that same pattern. And but again, if you for starters, I would recommend just kind of staying in one box. And then, as you start to feel like, okay, I've really learned all of those notes within that box, jump to that second minor pentatonic scale shape, and then give that a whirl. And then when you get really comfortable with both, that's probably going to be a forthcoming lesson. Then you can go back and forth as long as you hit those positions on the fretboard for those particular chord fingerings. And you'll just have a blast thinking, wow, I know the notes on shape 1 and shape 2, and you can go very low to the very higher notes within that pentatonic scale. And let me tell you one more thing. When you do that on a nice, loud, screechy electric guitar and you have it turned up to 11, you definitely feel like a rock star. I mean, I know that's how I can get when I
on the high gain channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Distortion fixes many woes with technique.
So Matt just asked a question. If you're playing pattern 1 on the 5th fret, so if I'm starting here, and you slide down the neck, do you change to pattern 2, or can you repeat pattern 1? Great question, Matt. So let's be clear when we talk about sliding down the neck. If I'm making my notes sound higher in pitch by going towards the sound hole, I would say that's sliding up the neck. If I'm sliding down the neck, that means I'm taking the tones and making them lower and playing them closer to the nut of the guitar. So the direct answer to your question is no, you couldn't take this pattern and go down to the 3rd fret and repeat that exact pattern because you just changed keys. What you would be doing if you're going to go down, if this is pattern 1, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're going to actually play pattern 5 here. Again, these are movable. Don't think of pattern 1 as 1st fret. Pattern 1 is just the number that we give to that form, that pattern. And where you put it begins the key. So if I'm in A minor, and that's why it's pattern 1, because I got it matched with my root note, and I want to play up the neck, I'm going to play pattern 2, and then pattern 3, and then I'm on an acoustic, so I can't quite get the 4, but I loop back around behind this to play the pattern behind it. Does that make sense, Matt? Oh, awesome, Melissa. Look at Melissa. So Melissa just went out. This is what I was talking about. If you think of connecting the shapes, and I think Tom's advice is awesome. This could be very dizzying and overwhelming. And the reason we are kind of saying, get inside a pattern and really kind of learn it. And that will really help you. These other patterns will always be there. In fact, there's some really good ideas about once you get pattern 1 down, what we like to do is maybe train you a little bit on just the high notes for pattern 2 because they go so well together. And I'll show you in a second. It's all pretty much the beginning of the Stairway to Heaven solo. He lived in that pattern 1 box in A minor. The song was in A minor. And then instead of learning the next connective pattern fully, which is a good idea, you'll eventually get there. But what we do is we teach, there's a little 5-note pattern. If you look at, let me see the colors that Melissa has. So if you look at Melissa's on the 3rd fret, that's where they're showing us what we were calling the 1st pattern on the 5th fret. And again, don't let the fret confuse you. Oh, look at that. She's even got beautiful nails showing us there on the 3rd fret. So if Melissa, if you go to the high E string and B string with the, well, on your paper, it's the 8th fret. Oops, you just moved on the 8th fret. But go to the high E and B strings. So the yellow, orange ones. Yep, but you're on the low E string. Go to the high E string, the top of that. Yes. So those two, along with that little note on the G string, and then the 2 notes behind it, it forms like a little house. It's kind of weird. It's an upside down house. That single string is the roof, and the 2 walls are the notes. Yep, those yellow and orange, and then the blue and red. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. That the 5 notes I'm trying to have her show is starting, now I'm on the 9th fret of the G string, and I'm just playing that little box. I start with the roof, which is the note on the G string that that's showing there, and then this little box. This is just a little box with this little roof on it. That pattern, if you move it back down this way, connects with that 1st pattern. And then when I get here, I could slide up to that box, and it gives me these 5 great notes to add onto that box 1. So what Tom was saying is, don't get like really, don't think you got to learn all 5 patterns out of the gate. Just stay with the pattern, and then you could start to add on either full boxes that I would say are connected to it, because then you could slide through and start to make the scale less sounding like a scale and more sounding like, you know, solos and improvs that you're doing. And really, one of the things about scales, it's just to remember, you're doing 2 things. You're getting the rote muscle memory down on where the fingers go. That's obviously step 1. Just like you spent all that time making chords and you had to do the muscle memory to get where all those go. It's kind of the same with scales. So that's the first thing you're doing. But what becomes kind of fun when you start to get a little bit of feel under, oh yeah, I kind of know that's, 5/9, 5/7, 5/7, 5/7. Some instructors even say the fret names while you're doing it. But this is an awesome opportunity if you're living in that one box as well to start working on what we call the secret sauce. That's how you make a scale, not a scale, in terms of sounding like it. And the secret sauce is just simply all of those little things you could do to a scale to make it sound not like a scale. So hammer-ons, pull-offs, vibrato. Now I'm just staying within that one pattern. I haven't moved from that pattern yet. There's a, let me see, Stairway to Heaven. Now I just slid up to that other box. So it's really fun to kind of start, yes, learning where your fingers need to go so that you're not thinking about it. And that's where you start to get your speed, but it's really the bending, the pull-offs, the trills, the vibrato that gives you, and I shouldn't be doing this probably on an acoustic guitar trying to show you Jimmy Page, but. Thank you, Melissa. That was awesome. It's like you're our Vanna White.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Thanks, Melissa. That was awesome. Good to see those patterns and stuff like that.
Colors. Hey, to add to what Paul is saying in terms of, knowing the scale and not really playing it like a scale, just playing some of the notes. You don't have to play every note in the scale, but just know that you can touch any of those notes during a solo. Yeah, you don't have to use it all. That's another one of those things that you can include in note selection and how you approach playing the pentatonic scale. So if you want to just play everything, the D and the A string, you can just focus on those notes. Or if you want to just play on the high E and the B string, you can just focus on those notes and it'll sound great. So that's another way to approach it as well. And if you're torn between but you're teaching me how to play the diatonic scale, all the 8 notes, and either that versus, okay, well, now you're teaching me 5 in the pentatonic scale, do I need to learn both? Well, it gives you opportunities when you do learn both. Of course, we've introduced you to, going through the chromatic scale and then the diatonic scale, and now the pentatonic scale, and each of those will give you a special way to approach music using those different scales. They're not all going to sound the same. I mean, some guitar players will go ahead and use 5 notes on the diatonic scale, just C, D, E, F, and G, and it sounds great. Or they'll just switch to the pentatonic scale. Sometimes they'll use notes within the chromatic scale, and that sounds great. These are all just more tools to add to your toolkit.
Paul, I have a question about something you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
When you say box, do you say stay within the pattern 1 and pattern 2? Is that the box? Is that the box you talk about?
Yeah, I guess I'm using box and pattern kind of interchangeably, although box also kind of means, so that's actually a good question, because a lot of times box means a very specific couple number of frets within that box 1. So pattern 1 is all the way down. And within pattern 1, if you look at the 5/7, 5/7, 5/7 on those middle strings, that's a box. Just because of the way those fingers line up, you're not adding the pinky to any of those. You did it on the 1st fret, but this is a player's box. Those 3 strings, it's rare in the other pentatonic boxes to get 3 strings together where you're only separated by a fret. So it's just a nice juicy spot to play around in when you're in that box 1. And then I was talking about a little box up here that was an extension. Again, we got these 2, the 8/10 on the B and E string. So yeah, I probably should have been clear. The full thing is a pattern, and then within it, there could be some really good playable boxes that they call it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Melissa's gonna start a GoFundMe page for some more rhinestones, I guess. Any questions about the Pentatonics? How you doing, Gary?
I'm fading fast.
Gary, do you got a little life alert bracelet on?
No,
I'm getting nervous.
I ain't ready to check out yet.
Is there anything you'd like us to cover that you didn't get to?
Oh, actually, I wanted to really concentrate on box one, and that's something to really play around with. And again, a lot of people are just afraid that they hear pentatonic and they say that's got to be too difficult. I can't do that. Well, yes, you can. It's so simple. Yeah, like I said, it's a box, and there's so much you can do. And with the musicians you've seen out there, a lot of them just playing in that first box position and making some beautiful music out of it. You know, use your imagination, use your creative ability, get out there. You're not going to hit a wrong note as long as you're playing, the notes that Paul and I have shown you there. You play along with the song. You may not be on the exact note they are, but you're in the key that they are, and you're going to sound good.
I don't know if this is for everyone, but one of the things I like to do when I was learning the pentatonic shapes is, and I bet you, I haven't tried this, but I bet you this would work because I got to it a little differently. If you were to Google, or if you're on YouTube and you put in the search box one, A minor licks, you'll get some awesome guitar licks that live right in box one. And there's a ton of them. I mean, there's the whole, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the last three strings in that pattern. So starting on the G string, so it's 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8 are my available notes. I'm going to bend on my 7 and just hit my, I should say 7th fret of the G string, and then just play my A and B together. I don't know if you could hear that. But that's a repeating lick. And the beginning of Stairway to Heaven, I'm going to play it really slow. Can you hear this guitar?
Mm-mm.
No? This is where our microphones start competing with each other. So that one lick is just a quick bend. Or the beginning of Stairway to Heaven, slow, big bend. And all of those notes except that last one are in that pentatonic box. The reason Jimmy Page grabbed that note, it's an F, and the rhythm guitar player's hitting an F at that time. And then he goes into another lick, big bend. And so all of this, again, is living within the first pentatonic. So when I was learning to get my hands familiar with the shape, to be honest with you, I'm not really a good scale player. I think it's boring. It's necessary, but it's kind of like the dentist. So to make myself practice, I would look up licks that lived within that pattern and just start playing around with that.
Hoping this opens up a whole lot more doors for people to get out there and experiment and play with it. And as long as you, like I say, as long as you're playing the notes within those patterns, you're going to be golden.
Hey, Paul or Michael, even Gary, is there a resource that that we're making available to everyone to just, if there's a like something in E that they can, like a loop of some sort that's out there that we can link them to? I know that there are a lot of online resources that will just go ahead and play one or multiple chords, and I've always found that to be helpful. Or maybe you have a looper, if you've invested in a looper that you can go ahead and play through your an amplifier. You've got
I've
You got
got
that as well.
several hundred backing tracks and keys that I can start making available on SoundCloud for some of the folks to practice their pentatonics.
cool. And then of course, if you do have a way to listen to, any song that you're comfortable in practicing against, it's fun to try to guess or identify what key it's in. And then once you identify that key and you're familiar with the tune, try and find that key on the neck, the right note on that bass line, and then apply that pentatonic scale, the minor pentatonic scale. See what it sounds like. And sometimes it works, and sometimes something else works. But the idea is to try to make use of that pentatonic scale where you can, and then use the other tools in your toolkit, the major scale, the minor scale, the diatonic scales, or the chromatic scales, to make it sound what's right for you. It's all very personal, very personal to yourself. You can play note for note, but isn't it much more fun to be creative? I mean, at least that's how I approach guitar playing. That's me.
Tom brings up a good point there. If you're listening to a song, you're playing a song in the background, you don't know what key it's in, just start playing that pentatonic box up in the neck. If you're not playing in the key with that song, you're going to hear it. It's going to sound like cats fighting. Just keep working your way up until, hey, that sounds good. Okay, so that's the key it's in. So just experiment, and it's a quick way to find out what key you are, the song is in.
I like
Yes,
it.
I was gonna ask Tom. Yeah, I was gonna ask Tom about, is there like a training aid or a training device that can help you figure out how to figure the key on a song or riff?
Well, I can either do it the hard way or the easy way. I do have an app on my phone that actually helps me figure that out. Hey, we're in the 21st century, right? But really, what it comes down to is, I've always found that if you listen closely to the bass line of the song itself, if you can identify the notes in the bass line of the song, it'll point you in the right direction in identifying the key. So, again, that's ear training, if you will. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely, those are my ways to. Happy to open it up to everyone else with their suggestions, because there are so many different ways to do that, Baltimore.
Yeah, I like to listen to a song once or twice first and just determine whether it's major or minor. And then you can actually, once you determine whether it's major or minor, use your pentatonic and just play up and down the neck in either the major scale or the minor scale. And if you're trying to play a song by ear, it's gonna be either the first chord or the last chord of the song that'll let you know what key the song's in. There's 5 or 6 popular chord progressions, and really the biggest thing is just trying to determine whether you're playing in a major or a minor key.
Generally, if you look up the sheet music to a song you want to learn, this isn't always the case, but I'd say with, country and rock and pop, probably this will serve you 95% of the time. The very first chord is going to be the key that it's in. So there are some exceptions to that, like Sweet Home Alabama starts on a D chord, but it's not in the key of D. But for the most part, when you go to look at your sheet music, and the very first chord that's played in the intro is generally the key that it's in. But Baltimore, I wanted to say, I posted a while ago an 8-lesson series, a YouTube series, all about the pentatonics and using it to incorporate it into your playing. I love it. I'm so excited that after, Gary got through this, I was going to talk to him about maybe making this a live event each week, and we just all together take the 8 weeks together. That's how much I liked this program. It's a free program out on the YouTube. And the very first lesson, his lesson is, how do I know what key the song is in. And what this guy did, and this is a little laborious, but it was kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about it. He actually took pattern 1. So that pattern you just learned, he put a song on and he did up and down the fret, you know, starting with the first fret, and nope, that wasn't it. And then he did it the second fret. He was listening to the song. Nope, that wasn't it. And it wasn't until he got like up to, you know, the 7th fret where he's like, okay, I think that's either going to be a, you know, a major or minor depending on it. But it was a really, I hadn't seen that done before, where he just used that one pattern, walked it all the way up until it sounded every note. Some of them you'll be close. You're like, oh, that kind of works. But then if you continue to play down, you'll be like, ooh, that one didn't sound good. So when you could play pattern 1 from top to bottom with whatever song you're listening to, he had that way as a way to find the key, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, if you wanted to check out that 8-part series, there's an earlier post in the community in Cavarts on it.
Okay, I'll look it up, and I guess it'll take time also, but I'll get there. We'll all get there.
It takes time for all of us, buddy. Hey, Otay, can you unmute? This is awesome. No. So Otay is taking lessons right now in our national virtual cyber program. How many lessons you got in?
Oh, I've got about 7.
So you're getting close. You're going to be getting a text from me soon asking me to verify your your shipping address.
Yes,
But
sir.
I wanted to ask, now I'm just going to say up front, we have awesome instructors. I mean, our instructors are top notch, but do you know who your instructor is? I mean, I know you know his name, but do you know who he is?
I knew by coincidence when y'all assigned him to me who he was, what he did, and we actually have some common friends from him in Nashville, Memphis,
Really?
me in Louisiana.
So how did you know about him?
Well, hell, he had 2 #1 hits in 1967.
So tell everyone who your instructor is.
Gary Talley. He played with the Box Tops. And you mentioned
a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. He co-wrote that.
Yep. He's was big buddies with Ed King, who was the original bass player for Leonard Skinner that wrote the lick for Sweet Home Alabama.
He did. Yeah, he did.
So he kind of taught me how Ed taught him the little tricks of that lick. So makes it a heck of a lot easier. But you know, and still gigging. So our schedule's kind of herky jerky. I think he's in New York City this weekend playing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I do an interview with every instructor. I make sure that we at least have some time to really talk about what we want to accomplish, Guitars for Vets from the program. And when I heard I was gonna, the way he came down to me, I have to be like honest, I didn't know that name. I knew the band, but I didn't know the name, Gary Talley. And he came as an internal referral, which means management said, hey, we'd like you to interview this guy, which usually means, you know, management wants this guy for other things, like to be an ambassador and to be a sponsor. And I'm like, all right. And I look at Gary Talley. It doesn't mean anything to me. So I YouTube Gary Talley, and it kept bringing me to these old box top videos. I'm like, what the heck? And one of the videos was them playing that song, The Letter. And it was, you know, like on, I don't know, Dave Clark, whatever that guy's show was, Bandstand. And I'm looking at the guitar player and I'm like, well, all right. So I get on to interview with them, and what's hanging on the wall behind him?
His gold record, the #1
and the guitar he was using in that video.
Oh, that's right. The green sitar that he used in the video.
That was awesome. All right. Sorry about that. A little divergent, but when I saw that you were on with us, I just had to have you tell us that story.
I owe you a great thanks. It was coincidental, but I couldn't have asked for anybody better. Thank you so much. I guess.
Well, now hold on. You could have got Tom or Melissa or Mike. I mean, you know.
No, I'm with OT on that one. I'm with you on OT. That's awesome, dude. That's so cool.
We could hang guitars behind us too, you know. not gold records though. Not gold
Records also.
All right,
I'm
any
happy.
other questions? David, you're going to sing for us that song, did you say? David DJ. He's off. Nope.
Nope, no singing from me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a comment to you, Paul. Per your email to me, yes, Thursday's good.
All right. Well, that's our interview.
What time?
That's our interview. So you already know I'm going to judge you by what's hanging on the wall behind you.
That would be a torn up curtain from my cat.
Sounds like Mike's place. Hey, one parting thought on this whole pentatonic thing. One of the things that was a light bulb moment for me in learning this instrument, and this might be too soon, I don't know, but I'll just kind of throw this out there. Before I got introduced to the Pentatonics, I was one of those, and I don't say this proudly, maybe if I had a way to go back and do it differently, I would, but I was a self-taught guitar player. I think I could have really, really benefited from lessons when I was younger, but it is what it is. But as a self-taught guitar player, one of the things that I learned when I was doing chords was that just like these pentatonic shapes are movable, obviously so are chords. And it was a really kind of mind breaker when I learned I could take my E and move it up to the 5th fret and do an A. And that's all these bar chords are, right? They're just movable shapes. And again, wherever we're landing on, that's how we know what the note name is, but the shape stays the same. So there's my E shape. Well, so not only chords, but scales. So if you learn the pentatonic shape or the diatonic or the modes, whatever we're learning, everything with guitar is movable shapes. That was kind of the thing that blew my mind. And I started with chords, but just like how we talk about wherever you start that box one, you know, basically with that box one, you've learned it now in how many keys are there? 12 keys if we count sharps and flats. You've learned it in all the keys just based on where you're starting. And so, you know, when you look at this fretboard and 6 strings and the possibility of the different notes you could make, it's not like a piano keyboard. A piano keyboard is so logically laid out. All the white keys are natural. All the black keys are sharps and flats. This thing is dizzying. But one of the things that helps make sense of it is once you start understanding these kind of movable shapes, and to some extent, like I don't have all the note names memorized across the fretboard. I have ways to figure that out. So it's not like you have to memorize all the note names, but it's nice to know when you're got a movable shape, whether that's a scale, a pentatonic scale or regular scale, or if that's a chord shape. It's nice to know where you're pressing it, the name of the note that you're doing or the name of the chord you're doing. So I don't know, sometimes I'll just say sometimes learning this instrument can be very frustrating just because of the way the fretboard is laid out and who the heck designed it where you have, you know, even intervals until you get to that darn B string, and that seems to throw everything off where you're trying to figure stuff out. But these movable patterns, at least for me, kind of helped understand my fretboard a lot better in terms of why it's laid out the way it's laid out. And I don't have to memorize a million things because, you know, once I get these movable shapes down, I just change where I'm starting, and that's a different key. And I don't have to memorize a whole new scale for it. So I know 5 shapes seems like a lot, but it's only 5, and it gives you the entire, not only does it give you the entire neck, it gives you major and minor. You're not learning 5 shapes for minor keys and then 5 different shapes for major keys. For the pentatonic, at least, when we get to the 7-note scales, that's a little different. But for the pentatonics, it's 5 shapes to rule them all is kind of one of the things I heard. So, all right, Gary, it is 1:02 and you made it. Wait, raise your hand. Let's make sure you're still alive. All right, it's good.
Yeah. But from here, I'm going back into the bedroom, take some NyQuil and pass out the rest of the afternoon.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it. If there's no other questions, Mike, thanks for helping get this recorded and go in. And thanks instructors for jumping on, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. It's good seeing you all.
See ya.
Coming along.
Take it easy, Gary. See you, Paul, Melissa, Michael.
Bye. Thanks, Tom.